Frost crackled beneath Dominic Mercer's boots as he stepped out of the taxi, breathing in the crisp December air of his hometown for the first time in nearly 8 months. His lean frame was wrapped in a tailored suit that still held the faint scent of a Frankfurt courtroom. The international arbitration case that had consumed his life had finally concluded with a verdict that would define his career as a defense attorney. Dominic had become the man who saved Riker Technologies from annihilation. A $2.4 billion lawsuit dissolved by his strategic brilliance. The modest 2-story colonial house before him was decorated with Christmas lights that flickered in familiar patterns. Dominic felt the weight of his absence in every step toward the front door. The past 8 months had been filled with video calls that grew increasingly shorter, messages that became increasingly sparse. Still, nothing could have prepared him for what awaited inside. He'd imagined this moment during the 14-hour flight home. Valerie running into his arms, Liam and Abigail fighting over who got to hug him first. Instead, when Dominic pushed open the door, he was greeted by the sound of laughter that stopped abruptly at his entrance. "Look who finally remembered where he lives," Valerie said, her voice carrying a strange edge that Dominic had never heard before. Standing in his own living room, Dominic felt like an intruder. Valerie remained seated on the couch next to a man Dominic had never seen before, tall, with salt and pepper hair and an expensive watch that caught the light as he draped his arm casually across the back of the sofa. "You're early," Valerie said, checking her watch. "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." "I caught an earlier flight," Dominic replied, setting down his luggage. Liam, his 17-year-old son, barely looked up from his phone. "Why did you even bother coming? Nobody wants you here." The words struck like physical blows, but Dominic maintained the same controlled expression he used when opposing counsel threw unexpected evidence his way. Abigail, 15 and already mirroring her mother's cold demeanor, added from the kitchen doorway, "Mom's new boyfriend is moving in tomorrow." Dominic's eyes fixed on the stranger, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Dominic, this is Preston," Valerie said, gesturing toward the man. "Preston, this is my temporary husband who can't stay long." The word temporary echoed in Dominic's mind as he extended his hand mechanically. "I understand completely," Dominic said, the words emerging with a calm that surprised even him. Christmas Eve dinner was a performance of normalcy wrapped in hostility. Preston excused himself early, promising to return the next day. The presents under the tree had names that excluded Dominic's. Not even a token gift had been saved for him. Later that night, as Dominic lay awake in the guest bedroom, he accessed the home security system through his phone. The cameras he'd installed years ago had been recording everything. 8 months of footage. He started with the most recent and worked backward. By dawn, Dominic had watched Preston enter his home 137 times over the past 5 months. He'd witnessed Valerie discussing divorce plans with a lawyer in their kitchen 3 months ago. Most painfully, he'd heard Liam and Abigail being coached by Valerie on what to say when he returned. "Make him feel unwelcome," she had instructed them. "The more quickly he leaves, the better settlement I'll get." As the sun rose on Christmas morning, Dominic made coffee in the kitchen he had renovated himself for years ago. He typed out a series of messages, then deleted them. This wasn't a matter for texts. This required precision. "Merry Christmas," Valerie said as she entered the kitchen, not meeting his eyes. "Is it?" Dominic asked, watching her carefully. "No gift for me under the tree." Valerie poured herself coffee. "You've been gone, Dominic. What did you expect?" "Honesty," he replied simply. "At minimum. We've grown apart," she said with practiced delivery. "I filed for divorce. My lawyer will contact yours after the holidays." Dominic nodded, his expression unreadable. "Honesty at last. I appreciate that." That afternoon, Dominic packed his bags while Valerie hosted a Christmas gathering that felt more like a celebration of his absence. Preston returned, bringing gifts for everyone. Liam and Abigail laughed at Preston's jokes. Jokes told in Dominic's armchair, from the mouth of a man wearing slippers Dominic had never seen before, but which somehow matched the decor. As Dominic prepared to leave, he paused in the foyer where Valerie was seeing off some guests. "I'll be in touch," he said quietly. Valerie smiled, clearly relieved he was leaving without a scene. "Take care, Dominic." "You too, Val," he replied. "All of you." His voice carried an undertone that made Valerie's smile falter for just a moment before he stepped out into the cold. The West Shore Hotel became Dominic's temporary residence as January's bitter winds swept through the city. From his suite, he could see the law firm where he'd built his career over the past 20 years. Riker Technologies had rewarded his recent victory with a substantial bonus, money that now funded his calculated response to betrayal. Dominic hired private investigator Monique Lawson, a former client whose reputation for discretion matched her efficiency. "I need everything," Dominic told her during their first meeting. "Not just the affair. I want to know who Preston Holt really is. I want to know how my children were turned against me. I want to know what Valerie's endgame looks like." Monique studied the files Dominic had compiled. "This is already more thorough than most of my preliminary work." "I'm thorough by nature," Dominic replied. "But I need someone with your access." Within 2 weeks, Monique delivered a comprehensive report. Preston Holt was a commercial real estate developer with 3 divorces behind him. He had met Valerie at a charity fundraiser 9 months ago, while Dominic was preparing for his case in Germany. Their affair began shortly after. More disturbing were the text messages Monique had recovered showing how Valerie had systematically alienated the children from their father. "She told them you'd abandon the family for your career," Monique explained. "She suggested that you'd found someone else in Germany." "The irony," Dominic said, his voice hollow. But the most revealing discovery was Valerie's true motivation. Preston had convinced her that with Dominic's expected partner status at his law firm, she could claim half of his future earnings in the divorce, significantly more than their prenuptial agreement allowed. "They're planning to force a settlement by threatening to damage your reputation at the firm," Monique concluded. Preston has connections with several board members at Riker Technologies. That same week, Dominic received divorce papers from Valerie's attorney, Trent Russo, a notorious divorce lawyer known for aggressive tactics. The initial settlement demand was staggering: 60% of all assets, the house, and alimony based on Dominic's projected income as a partner. "She's overreaching," confirmed Dominic's own attorney, Sofia Rivera. "But Russo will make this ugly if we fight." "I'm counting on it," Dominic replied. The next month brought escalation. Anonymous complaints about Dominic's conduct during the Riker case appeared at the State Bar Association. Riker Technologies received letters questioning his billing practices. His children stopped responding to his messages entirely. "It's Preston," Monique confirmed after further investigation. "He's calling in favors, spreading rumors through his network." Dominic's partnership consideration at the firm was quietly put on hold pending the resolution of the complaints. The managing partner, Lloyd Bennett, called Dominic into his office on a rainy February afternoon. "These allegations are troubling, Dom," Lloyd said, pointing to the complaint file, "especially coming right after your biggest win." "They're also completely fabricated," Dominic replied calmly, "and timed perfectly to coincide with my divorce proceedings." Lloyd raised an eyebrow. "Divorce? You didn't mention that." "It wasn't relevant to my work," Dominic said. "Until now, apparently." "Well, it's relevant when your soon-to-be ex-wife's boyfriend is golfing with 3 of our board members," Lloyd replied. "Preston Holt has been quite vocal about your domestic situation." Dominic nodded. "I suspected as much." Lloyd leaned forward. "Look, I've known you for 20 years. This doesn't sound like you. But perception matters in this business." "Give me 6 weeks," Dominic said. "That's all I need." Throughout March, Dominic appeared to be a man in retreat. He moved to a smaller hotel room. He accepted a temporary reduction in his caseload. He began settlement talks with Valerie's attorney, seemingly willing to concede to most demands. But in his reduced hotel accommodations, Dominic was building an elaborate web. With Monique's help, he mapped connections between Preston's business dealings and the complaints against him. He documented every instance of parental alienation, and he began making precisely targeted phone calls to former clients and associates. By April, Preston had moved into Dominic's house. Neighborhood security cameras showed him hosting dinner parties with Dominic's dishes, sleeping in Dominic's bed, wearing Dominic's robes. Valerie began referring to herself by Preston's last name at social events, despite the divorce not being finalized. "They think they've won," Dominic told Sophia during a strategy session. "That's exactly where I need them." The divorce hearing was scheduled for May 15th. As the date approached, Valerie's settlement demands grew even more aggressive. bolstered by what she perceived as Dominic's professional downfall. 3 days before the hearing, Dominic received a text from Abigail, the first direct contact from either of his children in months. "Mom says you're going to be homeless after the divorce. Is that true?" Dominic stared at the message, sensing not mockery, but a flicker of concern. He replied simply, "Don't worry about me, Abby. The truth has a way of surfacing." That night, Dominic made one final call. The morning of the divorce hearing dawned with unexpected clarity. Dominic arrived at the courthouse early, dressed in the same suit he'd worn when he'd won the Riker case. He sat alone on a bench outside the courtroom, reviewing documents as he waited. Valerie arrived with Preston and Trent Russo, her attorney. She walked past Dominic without acknowledgement, but Preston made a point of approaching him. "No hard feelings," Preston said, extending his hand. "Business is business, family is family." Dominic looked at the offered hand, but didn't take it. Indeed, as they filed into the courtroom, Dominic noticed something unusual. The gallery was filled with people. In the front row sat Lloyd Bennett and 3 other partners from his firm. Behind them was Victor Riker himself, CEO of Riker Technologies. Several others Dominic recognized from various aspects of his professional life occupied the remaining seats. Valerie leaned toward her attorney, whispering urgently. Russo looked equally confused by the audience. Judge Marlene Diaz entered, reviewed the case file, then looked up with sharp eyes. "Before we proceed, I understand there's a motion to introduce new evidence?" Sofia Rivera stood. "Yes, Your Honor. In the past 48 hours, substantial new information has come to light that directly impacts these proceedings." Russo objected immediately. "Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to delay. If I may," came a voice from the gallery. Lloyd Bennett stood, addressing the court. "Your Honor, I'm Lloyd Bennett, managing partner at Hargrove, Bennett & Associates, where Mr. Mercer is employed. Our firm would like to join this motion and present evidence of what appears to be a coordinated campaign to damage Mr. Mercer's professional reputation for the purpose of influencing these proceedings." The judge's expression hardened. "Approach the bench, all attorneys." After a heated sidebar discussion, Judge Diaz announced, "We'll hear this evidence. Mr. Russo, your objection is noted for the record." What followed was a methodical dismantling of the narrative Valerie and Preston had constructed. Monique Lawson testified about the systematic campaign to alienate Dominic's children. Lloyd presented evidence that all complaints filed against Dominic had originated from business associates of Preston Holt. Most damaging was the testimony from Victor Riker, who revealed that Preston had approached him directly, offering favorable real estate deals in exchange for damaging information about Dominic. Mr. Holt indicated that such information would be worth a fortune in an upcoming divorce, Riker testified. "I recorded our conversation." The audio playback filled the courtroom with Preston's voice detailing how they could squeeze Mercer for every penny, and how Valerie had played her part perfectly. By midday, Judge Diaz called a recess. When proceedings resumed, the gallery had thinned, but the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Preston was conspicuously absent. Valerie sat alone beside her attorney, who was frantically reworking their position. "In light of the evidence presented," Judge Diaz said, "I'm inclined to view the initial settlement demands with extreme skepticism. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential prosecution on charges of perjury, witness tampering, and attempted extortion." Valerie's face had lost all color. Russo requested another recess to confer with his client. When they returned, Russo announced that Valerie would agree to the terms of the original prenuptial agreement, with no claims on future earnings. She would vacate the marital home within 30 days, and she would withdraw all allegations against Dominic regarding his professional conduct. As the proceedings concluded, Dominic received a text from an unknown number. "What the hell did you just do?" Outside the courthouse, Lloyd approached Dominic with a smile. "The partnership vote is next week. After today's performance, I'd say it's a formality." "Thank you for coming," Dominic said. "Thank Victor," Lloyd replied. "He's the one who insisted we all show up. Said you saved his company, and he owed you one." As the crowd dispersed, Dominic noticed Liam and Abigail standing awkwardly at the bottom of the courthouse steps. Abigail's eyes were red from crying. "Dad," she said as he approached, "is it true what they said about Mom?" Dominic measured his words carefully. "Your mother made choices. So did Preston. So did I, by prioritizing my case when I should have been more present. None of us is without fault. But they lied to us, Liam said, his voice cracking. They made us hate you. Hate is easy, Dominic replied. Understanding is harder. What happens now? Abigail asked. Now, Dominic said, we start over. Honestly this time. That evening, after meeting with Sophia to finalize the divorce agreement, Dominic returned to the West Shore Hotel. On his phone was a series of increasingly desperate texts from Preston, whose real estate empire was collapsing as investors and partners distanced themselves following the courtroom revelations. A separate message from Valerie simply read, Preston's gone. He cleared out his things and left without saying goodbye. I never meant for things to go this far. Dominic didn't reply to either. As he packed his belongings to move back into his home, now solely his under the finalized agreement, Dominic reflected on the swift, decisive justice he had orchestrated, not through violence or illegal means, but through the same methodical strategy that had won him the Riker case. Patience, precision, and perfect timing. The final text he sent that night was to his children, moving back home tomorrow. There's a lot to rebuild. I'm ready when you are. In the morning, as Dominic checked out of the hotel, the concierge handed him a package. Inside was a partner nameplate for his office door with a note from Lloyd. Justice suits you. Dominic smiled. Justice indeed.